Welcome to the ME Fiction. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was in Madar's body and time travels? This is part 1, and if you want more then please leave a like, share and subscribe. Also check out the author of this fanfic. A New Yet Similar Path by Benji90. Do check out. Let's get in the video. The forest had been obliterated by the two powerhouses that were facing off against each other. Sakura, Kakashi, Yamato, Sai, Neji, Lee, Guy, Tenten, Gaara, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, Tsunade and Sasuke had been watching the battle unfold for over 2 hours. Madara Uchiha in his Akatsuki robes and orange mask and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze wearing the same outfit that his father had worn were at a stalemate. They stared at each other for a moment before resuming hand seals. Suiden Daibakufu no Jutsu, water type, explosion skill. The two pillars of water that they had created clashed and exploded. At that moment, another explosion rang out from a mile away in the undestroyed portion of the forest, and a few minutes later, Kankuro, Temari, Kurenai, Hinata, Shino, and Kiba appeared. Naruto's gaze shot towards the group of spectators and then back to his crimson-eyed foe. Damn it, thought Madara. I don't know how he did it, but if I try to use the Mangekyo Sharingan again, he'll just break Tsukuyomi and use that technique to force it back to a normal Sharingan, and I'm nearly out of chakra. So now you're the last one, Madara, Naruto said. You're the last member of Akatsuki. You know that this battle is inevitable, Naruto. He spat at the whiskered blonde. You won't kill me. Naruto frowned for a moment and said, I've already taken the abilities your Sharingan gave you and added them into the equation. You don't have much chakra left, let alone to prevent this next technique. Suddenly, behind Madara, a Naruto Kage Bunshin had popped out of the earth and went through a few hand seals. Suiru no Jutsu, water prison skill. A sphere of water surrounded Madara and trapped him. Damn it. The real Naruto smiled. You still can't kill me, you brat. I'm immortal. Naruto's smile grew a bit. Kinda like how Kyuubi was. He asked. Kakashi, Tsunade, Guy, and Yamato knew what he had just implied. Naruto. Please don't do it, Tsunade yelled. That would make 4 people I've lost. But Naruto had just finished the hand seals. Fuin Jutsu, Shiki Fujin, enchantment spell, dead demon imprisonment. Behind Naruto, invisible to all but Naruto, Madara, Sasuke, Kakashi, Neji and Hinata, was the god of death. I'll say hi to Jiraiya for you, Oba-chan, Naruto said. Then, everybody realized what was about to happen. I'll miss all of you, Naruto said. Naruto. Sakura cried out. Please. She fell to her knees knowing that the next few minutes were her fiancé's last minutes on this planet as she stared at the ring she had been given just a few days earlier. I love you, she whispered. I love you to Sakura, Naruto said. The Shinigami had just finished his ritual when Naruto dashed towards Madara and ran into the sphere of water and grabbed him by the shoulders. Once that happened, the clone Naruto had summoned disappeared and the water prison collapsed. The Shinigami grinned and reached through Naruto and towards Madara. Naruto smirked and said, he feels like you cheated him with that Sharingan's ability. Madara's eye was filled with fear and Naruto glared at Madara and his permanent Sharingan. But, you'll die as well, he yelled frantically. I already know that. I may be leaving my family and friends here, but I'll be joining others in the afterlife and I'll finally meet my father. Besides, if you had your way, I would have died when you extracted Kyuubi. Madara began to hyperventilate and Naruto smirked again. Don't worry, Madara. You're only going to be sealed inside of me, inside of Kyuubi's cage. Seal? The Shinigami quickly tugged Madara's soul and into the seal on Naruto's stomach and creating the same seal on top of it. Before the jutsu was fully completed, Naruto quickly retreated into his mind. When Naruto arrived in front of the Kyuubi's cage, he chuckled softly. Madara was in the corner in the fetal position while Kyuubi laughed at him. Madara had tried to use his Sharingan to repel the fox, but nothing worked and Kyuubi knew why. It's the seal, you idiot. It prevents you from using your chakra for a while and therefore negates your ability to control me. Madara whimpered when he saw Kyuubi bare his fangs in a low growl of laughter. After 18 years of dreaming of my revenge, 18 years of being sealed in Naruto all because of you, will be paid back, with one smooth motion, Madara Uchiha. the most powerful shinobi yet, was eaten by the fox he had once had control over. Not bad for an Uchiha. Tastes a bit like a cat. I hope you enjoyed your last meal. I did. Thank. Last meal? Naruto looked slightly embarrassed as he rubbed the back of his head. Damn it. Kid, we both agreed to not use it unless absolutely necessary. And it was necessary, you dumbass. We both know that this was the only way to actually beat Madara because of his damn Sharingan. Then let's use my jutsu. No, we finally beat Madara, and if we go back then there is a chance that we might not be able to do it again. True, but what about your life? Kyuubi had decided to pull out all the stops in this conversation. Your friends, your family, your future family. Sakura loves you, and if you leave her it will crush her heart. When she thought she loved Sasuke and he left, she was devastated. Now imagine what she might do if she sees her true love that had just proposed to her throw his life away. She might do something that could hurt many. Kyuubi didn't really care much for the pink-haired kunoichi that Naruto had loved and thought of for a decade, but he did care for himself and had slightly started to see the boy as a type of son. The type that you're disappointed in, but a son nonetheless. Naruto had flinched at these comments and didn't have anything else to say. Don't worry, kid. You'll have all of your knowledge and power, and your body may change slightly, but other than that, there isn't much to worry about. Now whether you want to or not, this is happening. Kyuubi roared as his chakra quickly engulfed Naruto. Madara's body had collapsed when Naruto's body started to change. He was screaming out in pain as it started. His body slowly began to contort until he was starting to look like a mini Kyuubi with 6 tails. Everyone gasped as it happened, and Sakura began to cry when 2 more tails appeared. The now transformed Naruto stood up on 2 legs and began to do hand seals. What jutsu is that? Sakura asked the 2 Sharingan wielders. Can't follow the seals, they both said in shock. After 1 minute, Naruto stopped on a tiger seal and said in a demonic voice, Oni, Jikenhanten no Jutsu, Demon, Time Reversal Jutsu. Everyone was shocked to hear this. He's reversing time. Kakashi yelled in disbelief when he felt his chakra leaving his body. He's taking chakra from everything, Sasuke exclaimed. Why is it doing that? It's what this jutsu does, Gaara said. The wind had picked up and was blowing towards Naruto. I remember hearing Shukaku considering using it. The jutsu takes chakra from everything within a mile of the user, and I mean everything. Shukaku couldn't use it though. It required too much chakra to use while being sealed in a human. Kyuubi, however, has enough chakra to initiate the jutsu successfully without dying. However, it's never been done with a Jinchuriki, so there could be negative side effects. So what's going to happen? Sasuke asked. He's reversing time so that none of this actually happened. We will never know of this timeline and its events. We will revert back to whatever age we were when the jutsu is finished. He, however, will retain both his memories and his abilities. So, he's pretty much pressing the rewind button of life? Ino asked. Yes, but like I said, mentally, he will be the same as right now. Physically? Sakura asked. A mix of how he is now and how he was when he was, however old he was when the jutsu stops. And us? Hinata asked. Shikamaru sighed. You weren't listening. This never happened and hopefully never will. I'm guessing that he's trying to change things so that the future is for the better. As he said this, everyone's eyes had landed on Sasuke. Let us hope that he does, Ino said. Honestly, he's kinda cute now. Sakura glared and was about to say something when she heard something. See you soon. Then there was a flash of white and then nothing. XXXXX Naruto felt like his limbs were on fire. What the hell? Just then, memories of his conversation with Kyuubi assaulted his mind. I can't believe it, Naruto yelled as he sat up. He looked around the room he was in and quickly realized that the jutsu had obviously been successful. Yet, something was different. He had felt this feeling before, but it hurt more when he used it. Kyuubi's chakra. He quickly went into his mind to find something that shocked him. The Kyuubi's cage was open and there was a small one-tailed fox curled up in the corner of the room outside the cage. Kyuubi. The fox lazily opened an eye. Hello, Naruto. The fox's voice seemed less foreboding. What happened to you? Naruto asked the now chibi-like fox. Well, the Kyuubi stood up and stretched in a feline manner. The jutsu may have had some unexpected results concerning me and you. I have a bad feeling about this, Naruto sighed. Kyuubi walked up to Naruto and sat back down in front of the blonde shinobi. Indeed. Well, usually, I wouldn't have had a problem with the Jikenhanten, but it has never been tried by a Biju while sealed away. You already told me all of this before we fought Pain. Kyuubi growled at the young Namikaze for interrupting him. Let me continue. Naruto stayed silent. Anyways, when I activated the jutsu, I noticed what started to happen right away. Kyuubi took a deep breath. I'm dying. Thanks for your concern, Kit. Well, you can't exactly blame me for not being too broken up about it. The small fox chuckled. True, at most, I have about a month left. Why are you dying? Naruto interrupted. The former nine-tailed fox stared at his host for about a minute before chuckling. While possessing you by forcing so much chakra into you, the Jikenhanten forced your body to permanently absorb the amount of chakra into your own spirit. Normally, this would kill you instantly, but the jutsu had a filter effect on my chakra and successfully changed it into your type of chakra, although it is a lot more potent than it should be. Naruto thought for a moment before speaking. How's this going to affect my body? Kyuubi grinned. Theoretically, the Jikenhanten would have slightly altered your body to suit some of your knowledge, but not too drastically. Thanks to the transfer of power, your body has undergone a transformation. Naruto's jaw had dropped at this. Don't worry, you're still a human, just this time, you'll look better. Naruto stared at the fox demon, searching for anything that would give him a better idea of what the fox was implying. Kyuubi used the silence to continue. Your strength will be immense as well as your chakra control, despite your increase of chakra capacity. However, you will still have your limits. What about my healing? Naruto didn't want that to leave him just yet. You will still retain the healing ability that came from me, but from now on, you can call it a Keke Genkai. Naruto was shocked that his healing ability would be able to be passed to his children. Also, another part of your newly formed Keke Genkai is pretty much a copy of the Rinnegan. The ability to use all the elemental chakra types. Thankfully, it won't be one of you, Dujutsu, that are so pathetic. Awesome. Kyuubi's sweat dropped as Naruto began to jump around as if he were 12 again. Will he ever mature? Gaki! Kyuubi yelled. Naruto stopped jumping and looked towards the fox. You won't have the elemental chakra ability for a while, and when you do receive it, it will still take immense training to actually be able to use it to your advantage. Naruto nodded, yet he didn't seem deterred in the slightest. You currently have the healing ability, but you won't receive the element ability until you've absorbed my final tail. Each of my tails is condensed with chakra and you have already taken 8 of them. So, I'll be as strong as you. No demonic chakra is much more potent than human chakra, and my chakra is being filtered into you so that your body can handle it. Although, I doubt that anyone else will have the same amount of chakra that you have. You could easily be compared to the 4-tailed beast. Naruto grinned. That's pretty much it about that, but I do have a warning for you, Kit. What is it? Naruto asked, feeling slightly uneasy at Kyuubi's tone of voice. Even though my chakra is being filtered, the remnants that aren't absorbed have to go somewhere. The 8 tails worth that was left was dissipated while the jutsu was in effect, but you have 1 tail left, and so that unused chakra will be absorbed into your hormones, so to speak. Am I going to be a pervert? Naruto asked. Kyuubi chuckled. Whenever this kid hears hormones, he always thinks of mating. No, hormones affect more than that. This chakra will affect your mood. You'll be more prone to losing your temper while you absorb my chakra. Don't worry, I doubt you'll physically hurt anyone, but knowing you, you might verbally tear someone down, especially in this time. It had finally dawned on Naruto that they had gone back in time. How old am I? He asked, fearing the worst. You meet the Cyclops today. Nani. Here we go. Although Kyuubi had then noticed that Naruto was in a corner with anime-style tears running down his face. What is it? Sniff sniff. Soccer is a fangirl again. Kyuubi's sweat dropped. Kit, get up. Naruto slowly got up, the tears having disappeared, yet disappointment was clearly written on his face. You got her last time, I bet it'll happen again. I guess, even if you don't, there was that blonde and the Hyuga. They seem to be interested. Naruto smiled. True, but we'll see what happens. Indeed. Anyways, Kit, Naruto snapped to attention. You're going to need to find some new clothes and make up a good excuse. Huh, why? Instead of receiving an answer, Kyuubi forced Naruto out of his mindscape. Damn fox! Naruto yelled as he sat up yet again. He looked around his room and saw that it was indeed the same bedroom he had slept in while he was at the academy and when he was a genin. Wow, this sure brings back memories. I better get used to that feeling. Stretching his sore limbs, Naruto slowly climbed out of the small mattress he once called a bed. He slowly made his way to the small bathroom only to hit his head on the frame of the door. Ow! I never hit my head on that. Rubbing the lump on his head, he ducked under the frame and entered the grimy bathroom. He pulled his toothbrush up to his mouth after smearing some mint toothpaste on it and looked in the mirror. It took him a second for his mind to process the new reflection staring at him. Wow, he whispered. He didn't look like his former self. Instead, he looked like a mirror image of his father. The whisker marks that he used to bear had disappeared and his eyes were just as striking as Minato's. He was obviously taller than he used to be. He was about 5 feet 10 inches tall. His hair was the same as his father's was. His face contained no trace of fat and was lean. His body was covered in lean muscle that didn't make him out to be scrawny, but it wasn't overbearing. Naruto grinned at his transformed state. Not bad, Kyuubi. Naruto quickly finished up in the bathroom while he contemplated possible excuses for his new look and had come up with a passable excuse. Although, people would definitely have their doubts. Naruto walked back into his bedroom and threw his closet open to be greeted by several orange jumpsuits. Back to this. I think it's time to do something about this. He grabbed the wallet he would always have and rummaged through it. Not bad, Gama-chan. You have enough for what I need. Then, Naruto remembered how hated he was in this time. Damn, looks like I'll have to use a henge. He quickly molded his chakra without any hand seals to see how well he could perform the henge without them. Not bad, Naruto said to his new reflection. In front of him was a boy he had befriended while training with Jiraiya. Better get to it. Naruto quickly darted out of his apartment and ran with his newly acquired speed to the nearest tailor he could find. It was still early in the day and not many people were out, so Naruto didn't run into many people. When he arrived at the tailor, the owner was just unlocking the door when he noticed the hanged Naruto. Oh, hello there, you must be new in. However, the man noticed that the boy in front of him was definitely under a henge. Drop it. Naruto looked surprised. Is it that bad? He mentally asked himself until he noticed the man's eyes. Shit. A Hyuga. He mentally shouted. Naruto looked downcast as he released the jutsu and was surprised to see the Hyuga grinning. What? He asked the grinning man. I'm guessing that you're Konoha's #1 prankster? Asked the Hyuga. Why, yes, Naruto. I see that you aren't using a henge to change your appearance and I have not met you before, but I know that this isn't how you look. Care to explain? Damn, 20 minutes in and I already have to explain. Well, I assume you know that I'm a Jinchuriki, am I correct? The Hyuga nodded and held the door to his store open, motioning for Naruto to enter, which Naruto decided to do. Right, well, about 5 years ago, the fox attempted to break the seal when I was in a weakened state. Weakened my ass, he was beaten, I bet, the Hyuga thought. Poor kid, he doesn't even know of his lineage. Well, he nearly broke out. The Hyuga paled when he heard this but remained quiet. The seal had to speed up the process of absorbing the fox's chakra and adding it to my own. Was that what the seal was designed for? The Hyuga thought. When that happened, it started to show me some of the moments in time that the fox had seen as well as shorten its own lifespan. When I saw a few of its memories, I also noticed how much I looked like the Yondaime, especially without my whisker marks which had faded the day the seal had sped up. Has he figured it out? Naruto grinned. The Hyuga's face was showing several different emotions. One of those memories was from October 10th. That day was the last day it would walk free. In that memory, I learned something interesting. I'm guessing that you already can guess what that was. The Hyuga nodded but said nothing, just in case the blonde Jinchuriki was bluffing. Just before the fourth sealed the fox Teme, he said a few things that, thanks to the fox's enhanced senses, he was able to hear. Let's just say that I would be in danger if I wasn't strong enough to protect myself from the enemies of my father who earned the nickname, the Yellow Flash of Konoha. Can you prove it? The Hyuga said quickly. The Sandaime might not want to release this information just yet. Yes, I can, and I intend to. The Namikaze estate disappeared on the day that my father died. I'm guessing that there was a powerful Fuin jutsu on the house that would activate a barrier around the estate when the last Namikaze died and would reappear the day an heir was found. I'm guessing that if I sign the title of the estate in blood and I am his heir, then the estate will reappear. So you hid what you truly looked like so that your father's enemies wouldn't come looking for you? Naruto grinned. Pretty much, but it was also good training trying to keep a henge going for 5 years. You must have released the jutsu sometimes, right? When I went to bed. The Hyuga nodded. So why are you here? He asked. I've decided to stop disguising myself now that I'm a genin and now I need clothes that fit me. Anything special in mind? My father's outfit, with a few modifications. The Hyuga smiled. Truly your father's son, indeed. Naruto then gave the specifics on the outfit and half an hour later, he was walking out of the store in an outfit mirroring his father's. He wore black shinobi-styled pants and a black t-shirt with a mesh tank top underneath. His sandals were also black and wrappings covered his ankles. His coat was white with red flames on the bottom of the coat. Naruto's shuriken holster was on his right thigh and he had a pack where he usually kept it. The coat had many pockets for scrolls on the inside. In Naruto's hands were bags with the same outfits and a few training outfits that he had picked out. Naruto noticed that more people were out than there were earlier and decided that he should walk through town under a henge of his former self. He quickly dropped his new stuff off at home and decided to talk to the Sandaime Hokage about his new look so that he would be able to walk around without a henge. Plus, he was sick of the apartment he was currently living in. G-San's alive, was the thought that kept passing through Naruto's mind. This time would definitely be different. He arrived at the Hokage tower and walked up to the receptionist for the Hokage. Hey there Naruto, she said as soon as she saw him. Hi. Is Jii-san busy? He asked. The receptionist shook her head. Nope, just doing his usual load of paperwork. Naruto shuddered at this. He remembered when Tsunade had said that she would probably be naming him as Rokudame in about a year, but he had to get a feel for what had to be done. He was quickly given the task of doing all of the paperwork which Tsunade was glad to give. Although, Naruto had quickly found a loophole to the bane of all cages. Wonder if Jii-san ever figured it out? Thanks, he said to the receptionist as he walked past the 2 Anbu guards stationed at the door leading into the Hokage's room. Naruto pushed the door open and was happy to see that the Sandaime was quietly muttering under his breath while going over a trade offer with the Land of Rice. When he heard the door open, Sarutobi was glad to see that Naruto had decided to visit him. He hadn't seen him for about a week, since he had met Konohamaru. Naruto. How are you doing? Naruto closed the door behind him and quickly preformed a few seals that the aged Hokage recognized. A privacy jutsu? How did Naruto learn that? Naruto grinned before he let the henge release. The Sandaime Hokage was a man who wasn't surprised by many things. Sure, he had fallen victim to the Orochi no Jutsu, but what male wouldn't? Orochimaru had defected from the village, but Sarutobi could sense it coming contrary to what he had wanted to believe. This however shocked him to the core. Minato? He whispered. Naruto grinned and shook his head. Nope, just his son. This shocked the Hokage out of his shock-induced state. You know? Naruto nodded. It's like this. Naruto then proceeded to tell the third Hokage the same story that he had told the Hyuga tailor. Wow! The Hokage exclaimed while he leaned back in his chair. You fooled everyone for 5 years with a basic henge. Even Hyugas. Naruto grinned. Not really, but if only, he thought. Pretty much, the blonde replied. So, I'm guessing that you'll want to be moving into the Namikaze estate? After I sign the deed to the estate. You're smarter than I thought, Naruto, no offense. None taken. So when will you have that ready for me? Sarutobi leaned forward and thought for a moment. Come back after you meet your Genin squad. Care to tell me who my sensei will be? Sorry, you'll find out later though. Anyways Naruto, you should get to the academy so that you stay as a Genin. If you're not there when they announce the teams, you'll be dropped from the roster and be put back into the academy. Naruto smiled. I don't really feel like it. How about this, if I can perform one ranked jutsu, you'll let me have the day off and I'll go to the academy around lunchtime. The Hokage smiled. Fine with me, but it can't be Kage Bunshin. Naruto smiled as well. I'm not a one-trick pony Jii-san. Naruto then held out his right hand and molded some chakra in his hand while spinning it. Then he condensed it and formed a small blue ball of chakra in his hand. Look familiar? He asked the Sandaime who had his jaw on his desk. The Rasengan? He asked himself. Yup, it took me about a week to master it. W. Week? Naruto nodded. I read about it in a jutsu scroll I found at the library. Someone had checked it out and forgotten it. Yeah, it had some good descriptions but few instructions, so I just improvised. Improvised? The Sandaime asked. Naruto nodded as he let the condensed ball of chakra fade out of existence. About a year ago I found out about it and saw that it required loads of chakra control. Luckily, I found a way around that with the Kage Bunshin which I had learned not long before that by accident. Accident? Naruto nodded as he sat down in the seat across from the aged Hokage. I had seen someone perform that technique when I was 10 and had tried to copy it. Took me about a year and found that I wasn't throwing enough chakra into it. The same week that we were taught the Bunshin no Jutsu at the academy. I read up on the differences between the two and found that the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu needs a lot of chakra while the Bunshin no Jutsu needs very little. The Sandaime Hokage nodded. He truly understands it, he's smarter than he lets on. So, I just had the clone help me manipulate the chakra in my hand. After all, 3 hands are better than 1. I didn't know that there were any books or scrolls in existence that taught the steps to the Rasengan. Damn! Naruto screamed mentally. What do I say? He then quickly brought out another excuse. There aren't, but the Kyuubi had been fairly intelligent and even though he is a Teme, he kinda helped me figure out how to do it. The Sandaime went white as a sheet. What? Naruto smiled. Don't worry, I'm stronger than he is so he can't actually influence me into doing anything, even if he is an ass. This led to another question. How long have you known? I thought that you had no knowledge of your condition prior to the Mizuki incident. Naruto sighed. He hated to lie but he couldn't just blurt out the truth that he was from the future. After one of the many beatings during my childhood, I was dragged into the shithole that is my mind. There, I met the Kyuubi who explained how he had wound up in me. I wasn't actually that angry with the fourth for what he did to me, especially when I learnt that he was my father. What else do you know? Naruto sighed. Well, I can speculate over a lot of things, like where the other half of Kyuubi's chakra is, but it's all speculation and I don't really care about it. Sarutobi nodded. He knew of the sealing, but he didn't know where the other half of the chakra was sealed. Well, what are you going to be doing until lunch? The Hokage asked. Naruto grinned. Well, 2 things. First thing, I'm going to help you figure out a way to keep the council calm while you tell them of my heritage. The Hokage flinched at this statement. He had completely forgotten about the council and their hatred towards Naruto. Second, I'm going to tell you that I know of a way to complete all of your paperwork without actually having to do it. The Hokage stared at Naruto before chuckling. Don't tell me that the Kyuubi has knowledge of how your father managed to pull that off. Naruto shook his head. No, I thought of it myself, but I bet that my father used the same method. Sarutobi's eyebrows were raised. Did he actually figure out a way? Your father said that it was so simple, that a Kage wouldn't even think of it. Naruto grinned. Then that means that I figured out what he was doing. It's still pretty complicated to certain groups of people, but for others, it's pretty simple. What is it? The Hokage asked, getting slightly impatient. I'll tell you on one condition, Naruto said. Condition? Naruto nodded. If you find this information to be correct, which it is, then you'll give me access to all of the jutsu scrolls in the Hokage's library. The Sandaime Hokage looked at Naruto for a moment, considering his offer. Only if it's accurate. Also, you can never tell anyone this secret, including your successor. Sarutobi nodded. I agree. Naruto smiled his widest smile ever. I'm gonna love his reaction. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto let the statement hang in the air while the aged Hokage thought about it for a moment. Naruto was not disappointed by Sarutobi's reaction. The most powerful shinobi in the village, the man known as the Professor for knowing all of the jutsu in the village excluding clan jutsu, and the Hiraishin, had begun to beat his head on his own desk while muttering one word repeatedly. Stupid, 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 stupid. Naruto had started laughing, holding his gut and doubled over laughing. The Hokage had never felt so humiliated. Damn you Minato. Even after death, you get revenge on me, the Hokage screamed in his head. Oh, man, I'll never forget that reaction, Naruto said as he tried to catch his breath. So Naruto, the Hokage said as he halted the self-inflicted beating. If you already had all of this knowledge, why did you fail the Genin exams 3 times? Naruto had forgotten about his past failures and used his new lying ability to satisfy the Sandaime. Kakashi Hitaki. I wanted him as my sensei and the only way to do that was to be on the same team as Sasuke Uchiha, seeing as how Kakashi would definitely be training the last Uchiha to use the Sharingan. Then there is also how the class is divided into Genin teams. Rookie of the Year with the dead last for example. Sandaime nodded with a smile on his face. Naruto is practically a genius. Well then, today has been enlightening. Naruto grinned as the aging Hokage stood up to escort him out of the office. I'll summon the council so that we may tell them about your heritage, only after you have met Kakashi. Naruto nodded. Thank God he doesn't remember me asking about who my sensei was. Naruto was standing on top of the Hokage monument wondering what he should do for the next 5 hours. It was 7 in the morning and he promised the Sandaime that he would be at the academy at noon so that he could meet his team. Naruto sighed as he remembered how much he had hated his team at first. The only thing he really liked was Sakura, and even then he had moments where he would doubt his love for her. Looking out at the village, he thought about all those he was going to try and save. I may have my work cut out for me. Then his thoughts took another turn. Mother, I know you're out there, but why did you leave? He remembered when he had finally found out who his mother was. Flashback. Naruto stared at the multiple rings in the eyes of pain. Now then, Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, the time has finally come. Fuck off, Naruto whispered. You should never have challenged a god such as myself. Your sensei Jiraiya suffered the consequences. You should have learned from his mistakes. Naruto let his rage consume him at the mention of the old pervert's name. Never say that name again, you son of a bitch. Naruto was quickly surrounded by the Kyuubi's chakra and tail after tail started to form. When the tails reached 4 and the transformation was completed, Pain lashed out. Using the small puddles surrounding them, he preformed his next technique. The water from the many puddles shot into the clouds above them. The clouds quickly began to contort into different shapes until it formed a large duplicate of Pain himself. The duplicate looked down on the mini Kyuubi and inhaled. Hyouden, Makai Hisame, ice style, hell hail, announced Pain. The duplicate formed into a giant meteor which shot towards the transformed Naruto. Naruto was about to take action when the meteor suddenly exploded. Pain whirled around only to have a long katana thrown through his face. The 4-tailed Naruto turned to look at the newcomer only to quickly fall to the ground and feeling the Kyuubi's chakra recede in fear. Just before he fell into an unconscious state, he saw a red-haired Kunoichi smile warmly at him. Good luck, son. When he came to, he was back in Konoha and in a hospital bed. When he told Tsunade what had happened and what he had heard the woman say to him, the beautiful Hokage had no choice but to tell him about his parents. Flashback ends. Naruto smiled. He at least had a mother who was looking out for him. The Kyuubi had never told Naruto why he was afraid of Kushina and refused to talk about what had happened. Naruto looked at his arm and flexed it. Wonder how strong I am. He started to think of different ways to test his strength out when it hit him. The 2 best taijutsu users in the village would be a great way to test his strength. This'll be fun. Naruto jumped from the Hokage monument and plummeted towards the ground below. Naruto focused chakra into his feet and quickly clung to the stone face of his father. Not bad control, Naruto said to himself. He quickly started to run down the monument and then towards the training grounds. Sakura was off to a bad start that morning. It had been 2 weeks since she had seen her precious Sasuke-kun. The academy had given them the time off as congratulations for passing their exams. Her red dress flapped in the gentle breeze flowing through the village. She was thinking of what she would be doing now that she was officially a ninja. I wish Mom told me more, she thought to herself. When she asked her, Mrs. Haruno had just shrugged and told her that she would see soon enough. Just as she passed the Yamanaka flower shop, she heard someone walk past her. Sakura glared at the person and matched their speed. Ino Yamanaka was having an interesting morning so far. Her father had accidentally woken her up with some exciting news that he was telling his wife. When Ino had gotten downstairs after getting ready for the day, she had found out that the Yamanaka had accidentally listened in on a conversation that a Hyuga was having that morning. Inoichi looked positively excited. And he knows how to fool the Hyugas. Ino didn't care about what he was raving about at the moment, for she saw a flash of pink walk past. She didn't say a word to her parents, who were in deep conversation about the council, as she ran out the door. Naruto was halfway across the village within mere seconds. Speed is fantastic. He wondered if his endurance was even greater as well. If my endurance went up as well, then I don't know what will stop me. His thoughts were quickly interrupted when he had to jump back to avoid colliding with two people he didn't want to see until lunch. The two kunoichi, however, ended up running into Naruto and were knocked down. Sorry, they both said in unison. When they looked up, there wasn't anybody there. Weird, Ino said. She could have sworn they had just plowed into the Yondaime. She didn't notice that Sakura had already gotten up and was running down the street. Damn. Naruto was jumping from building to building. It's too early to deal with those two, especially in this time. He finally landed in a tree at the training grounds that he had dubbed the Field of Eyebrows. He noticed that Neji and Tenten were there, with the two that he was seeking out were about to train together. Naruto was about to turn back and come back later when he heard a voice call out. Come out of there or else. Naruto looked back at the group to see that Neji Hyuga was looking straight at him, Byakugan activated. Damn it, I have to deal with that fate shit of his again. Naruto sighed as he jumped out of the tree he had been hiding in. Maida Guy turned around and had to stop himself from asking one thing. Minato? Naruto saw the look on Guy's face and smiled. I know what you're thinking. You'll find out at a council meeting this afternoon. Guy nodded, clearly trusting the new arrival. Tenten was looking at Naruto, sizing him up. He's cute, but how strong is he? Neji was glaring daggers at the blonde and Lee was showing polite interest in him. Hello there, my youthful friend. I am Maida Guy and this is my Genin squad. What can I help you with? Naruto didn't flinch at the volume of Guy's voice, at least not physically. He needs to tone it down a bit. Maida Guy, my name is Naruto and I have just passed my Genin exam a few weeks ago. I am here for I wish to challenge one of your Genin to a spar to see if I am any good, Naruto said in a pleasant yet firm tone. Why would you choose our squad? Neji asked abruptly. Naruto glared at the Hyuga. It's not your squad I'm interested in, it's him. At this, Naruto pointed at Rock Lee. Yash. I shall help you with your predicament and help you ignite your flames of youth. Lee yelled loudly. If I cannot do this, then I shall climb the Hokage monument with a boulder strapped to my back. Lee, if you cannot do this, then I shall run to Suna and back with my weights doubled within a day. After Guy announced this, Naruto, Neji, and Tenten knew what was coming. Guy-sensei. Lee, Guy-sensei. Lee, Naruto shut his eyes quickly to avoid the genjutsu. Tell me something, can either of you figure that genjutsu out? Naruto asked Neji and Tenten, who had also closed their eyes. Nope, they both said. I don't care who he is, at least he has the sense to close his eyes to avoid this, thought Tenten. They counted to 30 before opening their eyes to find that Guy and Lee had just broken apart as had the genjutsu. So now that all that's done, let's do this, Naruto said. Lee got into his Goken stance as had Naruto. Everyone present was surprised at this. They hadn't known of any other Goken users besides the two spandex-wearing ninja. Naruto and Lee quickly charged each other. Lee was on the offensive as he threw a punch through Naruto's guard, which was dodged. Lee followed up with a roundhouse kick which Naruto blocked. Naruto then took the offensive as he grabbed Lee's leg and used Lee's momentum to spin him around and throw him at a tree. Lee quickly recovered and twisted through the air so that he could use the tree to spring off of. He quickly planted his feet on the tree and pushed off using the force of the throw. He tore through the air towards Naruto, who had quickly jumped into the air to avoid Lee and the force that was carried with him. Naruto landed back in his Goken stance only to find Lee right behind him. Time to use the lotus, Naruto thought. Lee threw a left hook at Naruto only to find him gone. Lee didn't have any time to react as he felt himself being launched into the air by a kick to the chin. As he was soaring through the air, Lee sensed Naruto behind him. Kage Buyu. Naruto whispered. Lee's eyes widened. How can you use this technique? Naruto smirked. Simple, I'm a genius at hard work. Naruto flipped through a few hand seals, activating a jutsu that created chakra which bound Lee to Naruto just as Lee's wrappings would. Naruto was spinning quickly with Lee in his grasp. Omet Renge, Naruto said as he jumped away a split second before impact. Guy was struggling from having his jaw dropping. Incredible. Lee had stood up and shook the dirt off of him. He was feeling the after effects from being on the wrong end of the lotus technique. You all right, Lee? Naruto asked worriedly. I think that might have been too much. Even though Lee was still recovering from the lotus, he noticed something wrong with Naruto. He doesn't look fatigued at all. I think you have won, my youthful friend, he huffed. You sure? Naruto asked. Maybe I did hit him too hard with that. You are hardly even winded from using the initial lotus while I have taken much damage from it. If this were to continue, I would lose very quickly. I must say, you are a worthy rival. Indeed he is, Lee. He will make a great rival for you, Guy quickly yelled. Shit, don't tell me, Yash, Naruto. You shall be my eternal rival and I will strive to defeat you, Lee announced. DDDDAMMMMNNNNN. Naruto screamed mentally. Naruto spent most of the morning at the training grounds discussing the Goken style with Guy and Lee while Neji trained his Byakugan and Tenten was throwing kunai at a target. Sakura was fuming. Ino Yamanaka had somehow gained the lead in their little race and had gotten the seat right next to Sasuke. Sakura had to settle for being on the seat next to Ino. Ino, however, was very happy. She got to be next to the class heartthrob, Sasuke. Sasuke, on the other hand, wasn't happy at all, especially today. He had to sit next to not one, but two annoying fangirls at the same time. Where the hell is the Dobi? With him here, I would at least only have to deal with one fangirl. Iruka had already started to call out the teams and was reading out Team 5 when an Anbu appeared and handed him a slip of paper. He read it quickly. Iruka, Naruto will be late today and will not arrive until noon. He already knows that he must wait for his sensei along with his team in the classroom. Do not drop him from the roster, for he has my permission to not be there. A little warning for you when he arrives. He has changed since you last saw him. You will understand at the council meeting that I have called for this afternoon. Sarutobi. Sandaime Hokage. Changed? Iruka thought. How so? Naruto was sitting at Ichiraku's and had already explained what he had told the Sandaime. Ayame and her father were both impressed with Naruto's deception and had praised him by giving him a free bowl of ramen. 13 bowls later, thanks for the ramen, Naruto yelled over his shoulder as he headed towards the academy. Naruto looked at the people around him as he walked and was surprised to see their reactions. They were staring at him with awe. I must look like my father more than I thought. At least they're not staring at me with hatred. Naruto smiled as he passed a group of children playing a game of tag. No matter what, I will protect everyone this time. He continued walking through the village, remembering all of the good times he had had. I'm glad I have a second chance. This time, I'll make sure everything turns out right. At this, he jumped up onto a building and felt the cool breeze against his face. What did I do to deserve to be on a team with Naruto? Sakura thought. Here she was, sitting on a bench eating her lunch, alone. No Sasuke in sight. I mean, it's great that I'm with Sasuke, but why Naruto? And where the hell is that baka anyways? She sighed again and stared at the tree in front of her. Then she remembered the look on Ino's face when Team 7 was announced. At least that put Ino Pig in her place. Shanaru, we rule. She started to hum to herself when she noticed a blonde boy walk past her. Her immediate reaction was to hit him over the head, for she thought it was Naruto. Then she actually looked at him. Who's he? He looks like the Yondaime. Maybe he's related. The blonde boy glanced over his shoulder at the girl for a moment before turning his gaze elsewhere. He's kinda cute. He's hot. I don't know how to deal with this stuff, Agan thought Naruto. She was too hard to deal with when we were all Team 7. I don't know how I pulled through with all that abuse. I mean, I love her, but maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Naruto was thinking this when he looked back at the pink-haired kunoichi that he had been engaged to in his own time. Well, if it happens, it happens. He walked through the front doors of the academy and walked up to the classroom he had not set foot in for what must have been years. Well, technically 2 weeks. When Naruto opened the door, he was greeted by a snoring Iruka. Maybe I shouldn't, nah, who am I kidding? Naruto did the sign for his most infamous jutsu. Hey Iruka-sensei! Yelled Naruto as he activated his jutsu. Iruka had been having a pleasant dream that had involved the Ichiraku ramen stand, and a dangerous kunoichi known as Anko Mitarashi when he was awoken by a loud voice. He opened his eyes only to be knocked unconscious by what he saw. There, in all her nude glory, was Anko Mitarashi. Well, almost nude. It seemed that there were clouds of smoke covering the most intimate areas. Naruto dispelled his sexy jutsu, Iruka style, and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Maybe that was a little too much. Once he had been awoken by Naruto, Iruka was quickly told what the Sandaime and the Hyuga had been told, and to say that Iruka was impressed was an understatement. I'm so proud to have had a student like you, Naruto. Although, you should tune it down with the pranks now. Naruto shrugged. We'll see, Iruka-sensei, it's just too much fun to quit. Naruto and Iruka had then sat down and talked about some of the things that Naruto actually knew how to do. Naruto was, of course, being as discreet as possible so that he didn't seem too suspicious. He already was mentally berating himself for showing the Sandaime the Rasengan, and he didn't want another slip-up to happen just because he wanted to get some attention. Just then, the bell signifying that lunch was over rang. Naruto had decided not to sit down but to stand at the window. Ino Yamanaka was the last one in the classroom thanks to her new team, Shoji Akamichi had insisted that they stay put until he had finished what was left of his lunch. Ino was about to leave the Akamichi and the lazy Shikamaru Nara when she remembered that her father had made her promise to stay with her team as much as possible, even if that meant missing out on sitting next to the Uchiha. He probably knew about this whole team matchup thing. When she entered the classroom, she was surprised to see the man she had run into that morning. So it wasn't just my imagination, she thought. As she took a seat on the front row, she studied the man that was staring passively out the window. He was tall, handsome, nearly everything she wanted in a man. Then she noticed something. He's not that old, he's at least my age, which means I might have a chance. Now I have a shot at not one hot guy, but two. Iruka watched the classroom as they all studied the class as they stared at the new and improved Naruto. Naruto made me promise not to tell anyone, so I won't. All right class, he said, immediately getting their attention. It's time for you to meet your Jonin-sensei. They shall be arriving shortly. As he finished, the door slid open to reveal a man and a woman. Genma and Kurenai, Iruka thought. Team 8, come with me please, Kurenai announced. Many males in the room stared at the beautiful Kunoichi now in their midst. Not again, Kurenai thought as she watched nearly every single male practically drool. Except for 3 of them, Iruka, Sasuke, and Naruto. Iruka and the Uchiha are to be expected, but who's the blonde? She thought to herself. He's not that old, but he holds himself like a cage. She looked at his posture, he was facing the window, arms folded, unblinking. He looks like the 4th, she realized. Maybe he's new to the village, but that's a Konoha headband. Shino, Kiba, and Hinata had approached their new sensei to see that she was staring at the unfamiliar person in the room. The blonde had obviously sensed Kurenai's gaze upon him and mouthed something that 5 people in the room had understood. Kurenai nodded and walked out of the room with her new Genin squad following her. Genma had watched the emotions flick across Kurenai's face and was thinking the same thoughts as she was. What he was surprised at was what the blonde had said. He understood what he meant and couldn't help but be even more curious. Team 6, meet me out front. With that said, Genma used the Shushin no Jutsu to disappear, leaving his new Genin squad excited about what they might learn as they left the classroom. XXXXXX. After about an hour, there were only 2 teams left, Team 10 and Team 7. Ino and Sakura were now on both sides of the last Uchiha, who was staring at Naruto, wondering who this new person was and why there was going to be a council meeting that would clarify things. Shikamaru was occasionally glancing at the tall blonde who had barely moved since silently speaking to the female Jonin about the council meeting. Poor dad, he has to go to another troublesome council meeting. Shoji was sitting next to his friend, happily munching on his chips, but he was also curious as to who the blonde was, seeing as how Shikamaru was taking notice. Ino and Sakura were curious, and Ino had tried to work up the courage to speak to him, but found that she just couldn't. Iruka had been watching the 2 teams and silently chuckled. I wouldn't be surprised if Shikamaru figured it out, he thought. He finally stood up and stretched. Well you guys, I'd better get going. Your sensei will be here soon, I hope. The fact that he hadn't specified which team's sensei left 5 of the Genin extremely curious. Before he walked to the door, he rested his hand on Naruto's shoulder and whispered to him, "Be careful, Naruto." Naruto only nodded. Iruka walked out of the classroom, leaving the 6 Genin alone. Naruto looked like he was doing some intense thinking on the outside, but on the inside was a different story. Oh man, I love this, he shouted mentally. I can feel the curiosity rolling off of all of them. Wonder when one of them will try to speak to me. His question was quickly answered by the second blonde in the room. You kinda young for a Jonin, are you really one of our sensei? Naruto paid no attention to the young yet beautiful blonde. Ino was feeling irritated that her question had been met with nothing but silence. Who the hell does he think he is? Hey, I asked you a question, she yelled. This time, she was met with a stare from the larger blonde. Wow, his eyes are really intense, she thought. Then, she felt her face heat up. I hate it when I blush. Naruto had a slightly similar thought to Ino's reaction. She's cute when she blushes. Naruto shifted his gaze from the Yamanaka to the door of the classroom. Well, at least he's here. The door opened to reveal the chain-smoking sensei of Team 10. His gaze quickly went to the blonde Jinchuriki. Father was right. He really does look like his father now. I must say, I'm impressed that he's hidden this from all of his for this long. He's definitely the strongest genin out of this year. His gaze then fell upon the Uchiha and the two fangirls that were now staring at the latest arrival. I pity Kakashi now. All right, Team 10, follow me please. Shikamaru yawned at this as he stood up along with his pleasantly plump friend. Ino, however, got up very reluctantly, seeing as how she would be leaving her rival in the company of two hot guys. Maybe I'll see the new guy around the village later. As they were walking out, Asuma looked at Naruto, who quickly met his gaze. I assume that he'll be here in at least half an hour, Asuma said to the Namikaze. Naruto nodded as Asuma closed the door behind him. Damn Naruto baka. Why the hell is he so late? Sakura yelled out half an hour later. Even though he said nothing, it was quite apparent that Sasuke wondered the same thing. Who says that he isn't here? Naruto asked while watching the sky outside. Sakura was taken aback by the question from the Yondaime look-alike. We would have sensed him by now, sensei, Sakura stated. I'm not so sure about that. What do you think, Teme? He asked as he looked towards the Uchiha. At this, Sasuke was glaring daggers at the blonde. What the hell is going on? He growled. The only one that calls me that is Naruto, but he can't be. For a prodigy, you're kind of a disappointment. You couldn't spot a simple henge for 6 years. Then again, neither did the Hyugas or the Hokage. In fact, nobody else detected it at all. What do you mean? Sasuke asked angrily as he stood up. Naruto shook his head. Calm down, Sasuke. If we're going to be a team, we need to act like one. How can you be Naruto? You look similar, but he was cut off when he sensed the same chakra pattern that he knew to be Naruto's coming from the blonde in front of him. The Naruto you knew was just an act. Well, I do love ramen and pranks. Sasuke glared at Naruto. Why did you hide under a henge then? Because of my lineage. I didn't want anyone to recognize me for who I truly was until I could at least defend myself. Not much else to it really. Sakura's mouth had dropped open. The annoying little blonde that had annoyed her from the start of the academy, the blonde that could never sit still, the one that could never outshine her precious Sasuke-kun, had deceived the entire village with a simple henge and had stood still for well over an hour. Not even her inner self had any comments right now. She was slightly berating herself for thinking that the blonde had been hot since lunch. So, we're waiting for our sensei then? She finally asked. Naruto nodded. Hopefully, he won't be much longer. He walked towards the other side of the room and leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. Naruto sighed when he felt the glare from Sasuke. What? He snapped. He was only glaring. Why'd I snap at him? Even Sasuke seemed derailed for a moment before returning to the task at hand. How strong are you really? He asked. Naruto just shrugged. I don't really know, I haven't had to fight that often so. Sasuke nodded. He could be strong enough to not hold me back, but I think that may not be the issue. His gaze turned to his pink-haired teammate who was staring at Naruto. At least you don't wear that target you call an outfit, Sasuke said with a smirk as returned his gaze to the blonde. Naruto smirked at this as well. It was fun acting like an idiot while it lasted. Sasuke nodded. Perhaps this won't be so bad, he seems sensible, then again, he may prove me wrong. Suddenly, the door started to open and before Sasuke or Sakura knew what was happening, Naruto had thrown a kunai at whoever was entering. When they had finally realized what had happened, they turned towards the door to see that the kunai had been caught. Fast was the only thing that the two genin could think as they glanced at the new arrival and Naruto. The man who caught the projectile was a tall silver-haired man, wearing a regular jonin outfit with a mask hiding most of his face and his hite slanted down, covering his left eye. He's changed. He looks more like his father, thought one Kakashi Hitaki. The visible eye was closed in an upside-down U shape, indicating that he was smiling. I must say, that kunai was thrown rather impressively, however, you didn't know if I was an ally or an enemy. Naruto grinned. I knew who you were, Kakashi Hitaki, said Jonin's eyebrow raised in interest. Then why throw it? Because you were late. Well, I saw it coming, but at least you were on your guard, just in case. Naruto raised his eyebrows and asked, really? Well, Did you see this coming? He asked as he pointed at what Kakashi had caught. Kakashi looked at the kunai in his hand to find that there was a tag wrapped around the handle. Shit, was the one thought of the copy nin as the tag went off. What happened next was not what was expected. Instead of an explosion, orange smoke quickly erupted from the tag, covering Kakashi completely. This is a Jonin. Pathetic. Sasuke though, however, he was attempting to hide a smirk. Sakura was having trouble keeping her inner self in check. Shanaru, that was totally awesome. Way to go Naruto. I agree, when the smoke cleared, there tooed a completely orange Kakashi. Doesn't look that bad on you Kakashi, Naruto said, who was chuckling. The #1 prankster in Konohagakure is back with the vengeance. Well, that was interesting, Kakashi thought. It would probably be funnier if it weren't preformed against me. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. With that said, he disappeared in a whirlwind of leaves. Without another word, the 3 genin went up to the roof of the building, not saying a word to each other on the way. Sasuke was silently admiring the talent that Naruto had shown. Not bad Dobi. When they reached the roof, they found a Kakashi that seemed to be perfectly fine leaning on the railing. There was no orange left whatsoever. You're pretty talented Kakashi-sensei, said a grinning Naruto. Same to you. Kakashi then indicated with his hand for them to sit down in front of him. So, now that we're all here, let's introduce ourselves, shall we? Before Sakura could ask what he meant, Naruto stood up. My name is Naruto, my hobbies include training and pranks, my dislikes are people who blame others for something they have no control over. Being a Jinchuriki, Kakashi thought. I have many likes, ramen, friends for example. My dream is to be one of the greatest Hokages to ever have lived. Kakashi nodded. Interesting. Okay, you next Pinky, he said, pointing at Sakura. Sakura scowled at her nickname. Oh, my name is Sakura Haruno and I like. She looked over at Sasuke. Squeal. My dream is to squeal. Kakashi mentally sighed. Seems like another fangirl, great. What about your dislikes? He asked. Naruto, she said loudly. The blonde, however, reacted differently than expected. Like I care, he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Where the hell did that come from? Sakura and Sasuke looked shocked. Did he just say that? Kakashi watched their reactions for a moment before continuing the introductions. Last one. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. There is nearly nothing that I do like as there are many things that I dislike. I don't have a dream. It's more of an ambition. I intend to revive my clan and kill a certain someone. That's to be expected. All right, and my name is Kakashi Hitaki. We shall meet tomorrow at Training Ground 7 at 8. There, we shall conduct a survival test. Sakura was about to say something when Naruto beat her to it yet again. Anything in particular that we need to bring? He asked. Kakashi nodded. Bring your ninja gear with you. All the information you need is on these sheets. As he said this, he handed the 3 of them 3 sheets of paper. One more thing, he said as he turned away from them. I suggest that you don't eat any breakfast, unless you enjoy throwing up. With that said, he disappeared in another whirlwind of leaves. Naruto got up and looked at his teammates. I don't know about you two, but I'm going to eat breakfast. He didn't order us to skip it, and besides, we're going to need all our strength seeing as how he said it was a survival test. Sasuke nodded, understanding what he meant. Sakura, however, was having doubts about what Naruto had just said. Naruto Baka, what would you know? At this, Naruto felt his anger flare. Shut the hell up Sakura. I happen to know what kind of test he's going to be giving us and I for one want to be prepared, so if you won't mind, keep your stupid comments to yourself. Once he was done, he quickly used Shushin, leaving his teammates stunned. What happened to him? Sakura thought. It's about time he stopped taking that crap from her, thought Sasuke. Maybe he isn't such a baka after all. XXXX Naruto reappeared a few blocks away, feeling angry and guilty, yet satisfied. Damn, now I get it. It's those damn hormones thanks to the transfer. Oh well, it can't be helped, it's not like what I said wasn't what I've been thinking on my own. Naruto looked up at the Hokage monument in the distance. Probably should go see if Ji-san is ready yet. As he set off towards the Hokage tower, another figure sat watching him. He's definitely better than what the file said, thought a Sharingan-wielding Jonin. It's kinda eerie how much he looks like you, Minato-sensei. Well, I better head to the council meeting to see what's so important to call all of us." He quickly set off in the same direction of Naruto. Sarutobi watched from his seat as most of the Jonin of Konoha arrived and took their own seats in the large council chamber. The council, consisting of the clan heads, the Hokage's assistants, Kaharu and Homura, important civilians and the Hokage himself were already there and had been for several minutes. Now, they were only waiting on 4 more people: Guy, Kakashi, Kurenai, and the guest of honor. Kakashi had better not be late this time. Sarutobi had threatened the lazy, chronically late Jonin to show up on time, or his collection of Icha-Icha books would disappear and he would be banned from the bookstores that sold them. Kakashi had quickly given his word to arrive on time. The aging Hokage grinned when he remembered the look of horror on Kakashi's face when the Hokage had brought the books into the equation. I can see why Naruto loves to prank. At this moment, 3 of the 4 people arrived at the same time. The Sandaime was disappointed that the one that was missing was the blonde-haired prankster. Although, I'm surprised that Kakashi made it on time. Suddenly, he felt the presence of the blonde Jinchuriki and turned to see him standing at the door, completely unnoticed. I see he's smart to not make his presence known, thought Sarutobi as he nodded slightly, indicating that he understood what was expected of him. Everyone's attention was currently on the Hokage as they all wondered the same thing. Why did the Hokage call for an emergency council meeting? The Hokage stood up and surveyed the crowd in front of him. Many of them were anxious, some confused, and few who seemed irritated. Sarutobi's gaze lingered on the 3 individuals who were those few. As expected of Heishi and my assistants, he thought. He cleared his throat and fiddled with the pipe in his hand, which wasn't lit, indicating that he was to not be interrupted. My fellow villagers, I have called this meeting for something of great importance has surfaced. He kept his face in a serious manner as he watched everyone's emotions. Nothing of great importance had happened since the failed kidnapping attempt on one Hinata Hyuga. It has been 13 years since the Yondaime died, sealing the legendary Kyuubi into one infant to save us all. He stopped again as he watched many civilians and about half of the Jonin grit their teeth at the mention of the demon child. Since then, the Namikaze estate has remained under the strongest genjutsu that the Yondaime created that none have been able to pierce. The only way for the estate to reappear and be unlocked is if someone with Namikaze blood were to sign the deed in blood. Many were muttering to each other, not seeing where this was going. Heishi Hyuga, however, had spotted a certain blonde hiding in the back of the crowd. Heishi at first thought it was the long-dead man they were speaking of, but upon closer inspection courtesy of his Byakugan, he noticed many different things, mainly, the occasional burst of red chakra within his system quickly running through his system and disappearing. Heishi was of course, not stupid nor was he ignorant. He had quickly figured out why they were here and decided to speak. "You have found the son of Minato Namikaze." Sarutobi looked over at the Hyuga and was surprised to see that he was suppressing a smirk. "Is it true?" Anko asked suddenly as she stood up from her seat. "Indeed it is, Anko. Naruto, come forth." Naruto quickly made his way to the front, ignoring the glares of hatred directed his way. Suddenly, as he was passing a certain pink-haired Chunin, he heard a cry of hatred. "That demon child is no son of the legendary Yondaime. That's the one that murdered him and nearly killed the whole village." Naruto felt his killer intent spike dangerously as he reached for his kunai pouch to only have Kakashi place a hand on his left shoulder. "Don't, Naruto," he whispered. Naruto felt another hand on his opposite shoulder and sensed Iruka. "Ignore her." Naruto nodded as he repressed his killer intent. When Naruto had reached the front, with Iruka and Kakashi still by his side, he watched the council. Many people looked upon him with anger. Some were watching the 2 shinobi that were obviously on Naruto's side, a few of them looked indifferent, some curious, and a handful that were beaming with happiness. Obviously, there is only one way to actually confirm this to be factual, so I have had Ibiki get me the scroll that contains the deed to the Namikaze estate. Ibiki, if you will. The Sandaime Hokage motioned for the head of torture to bring him the scroll. Ibiki handed the scroll to the Hokage and turned to look at Naruto. He gave him a quick look over and grinned. "You look like him." With that said, the large Jonin returned to his seat in the middle of the chamber, right next to Anko Midarashi, who leaned over and whispered into Ibiki's ear. Naruto turned his attention from the two sadists to the yellow scroll that was being presented before the crowd, who had become silent once more. This scroll is sealed with a blood seal that only an heir of Minato would be able to open, and I am confident that young Naruto here shall do just that. Without another word, he presented Naruto with the scroll, and Naruto stared at it for a full minute before slowly taking it from the aged Kage. Naruto sighed as he quickly bit his thumb and smeared the blood over the seal. Nothing happened for a few seconds, and the Hokage was a little worried when a flash erupted from the seal. The flash quickly died down, and when Naruto opened his eyes, he was the only one unsurprised to see that Minato Namikaze was standing in the room. XXXXXX Sasuke Uchiha was currently walking towards the Uchiha compound, thinking about how strong Naruto had become. I still can't believe that the Dobi was failing on purpose in the academy. Why would anyone do that? I wonder if we were to fight, who would win? Sasuke grit his teeth when he thought about it and remembered the dangerous glint in Naruto's eye when he had spoken about hiding who he truly was. That glint had told the Uchiha that Naruto was a person you would not want to mess around with. I wonder, maybe Naruto could help me gain more power. I don't want to admit it, but when he approached the academy at lunch, there was something about him that made me think of Itachi and his power. Maybe Naruto could help me against Itachi. Yet, Itachi left me alive so that I could kill him myself. That must be the only reason. He felt some sort of guilt that day. Some part of him couldn't let him get away with it, but why me? Yes, being the last Uchiha was definitely not the best thing in the world. For some reason, Sasuke had finally considered using someone to help him kill his brother. Never before had he thought of something such as this, and yet, when he looked into Naruto's eyes, he knew it would be for the best if someone were to help. I shall think it over later. Finally, Sasuke was at the end of the road where the entrance to the grounds of the Uchiha compound were when there was a bright yellow light that appeared just across the road. Sasuke had to close his eyes to keep himself from going blind. The light seemed to engulf him with a strange energy. It seemed purifying. When it finally receded, Sasuke opened his eyes slowly to adjust to the light from the sun. What he saw was slightly shocking. All his life, when he exited the Uchiha grounds, there was nothing but a stone wall that he had never given a thought. Now, however, the light had seemed to create a large iron gate that seemed calming, yet foreboding at the same time. Sasuke felt his mouth hanging open in surprise as he slowly approached the gate. The gate seemed to be luring him, as if it would grant whoever could open it immense powers. Sasuke reached out with his hand only to find that he could get within 6 inches of the bars of iron. He pushed again with more force, yet there seemed to be some sort of force pushing back. Sasuke stopped and slowly retracted his arm and stared at the gate for a minute before focusing past it. All that he could see was a large field of flowers. Flowers? Why is there a field of flowers past this? XXXX Heishi Hyuga had activated his Kekkei Genkai to assure himself that it was not just an imposter. Yet, there he was, Minato Namikaze, the one that had given his life 13 years earlier to seal the Kyuubi into his own son. Impossible, and yet, here he is. Everyone present were currently on their knees. The Yondaime looked around the room, inspecting everyone individually until his eyes came to rest upon the near mirror image next to him. He smiled softly at him. Naruto, you've grown. Naruto nodded, not saying a thing. Minato's gaze then shifted to the man Naruto's left. You've grown as well, Kakashi. The silver-haired man said nothing, too speechless to even react. How? Sarutobi finally asked. How are you alive? Minato looked sadly upon his predecessor. I'm not alive. I am merely a clone so that I may explain that Naruto is my son. I knew that no one would believe him, even if he proved that he was Namikaze with a blood seal, so I created a special seal in this scroll to seal a Kage Bunshin to do its job. Seeing the bewildered look on everyone's face, he grinned that foxy grin of his. It was pretty complicated, and it took me several tries to get right. I originally designed it for the uses of delivering messages that could not be used against us if it fell into the wrong hands. Sarutobi nodded, remembering the fourth once explaining what he was going to try to do when he first became Hokage. So, I see that you've figured out who you really are, Naruto. Yes, father, Naruto said as he grinned. I really am sorry about what I did to you, but you were the only choice. It's all right, Dad, I understand perfectly, Minato nodded. So did the village honor my wishes? He asked the current Hokage. Very few did. Tell me, Which ones? Your student, Anko, Ibiki, myself of course, Uruka, the Ichirakus, the Hyugas haven't shown any aggression against him, those that have were executed. The Yamanakas, Kurenai, Genma, a few civilians, and your sensei haven't when he was here. Minato nodded. I see, well, I'm very disappointed, but unsurprised. He then turned back to the crowd. To think that this village, the one I swore to protect no matter what, turned against my own son because he saved you all from the demon. I truly am ashamed. I take it that most of you are convinced that Naruto is my son? Many people nodded. Dad, there is one thing I want to say before you leave. Minato nodded. Go ahead. The fox broke the seal. Minato jumped back, white as a sheet. How? It forced too much chakra through the seal. Come see. Minato looked at his son, wondering what was about to happen. He slowly approached his son and looked into his eyes to feel the effects of a genjutsu. Minato looked around to find himself in the Hokage's office. He was about to dispel the genjutsu when he heard his son's voice. Don't, please, there is something that I need to show you. At this, the scene changed to the conversation that Naruto had with the Kyuubi before he had activated the Jikenhanten. Then, the scene started to change. Minato looked at his son once the genjutsu had been lifted. I truly am proud of you, son. Naruto nodded as he watched his father turn and face the Sandaime. Minato placed his hand on the elder Hokage's shoulder and smiled. Now that my seal is taking effect quickly, the village should be a bit more understanding. Sarutobi nodded, slightly in a daze. This still seems impossible. It was good seeing you again, Minato, even if it was just a clone. Minato smiled sadly before once more turning to Naruto. I take it you'll know how to open the gate. Naruto nodded to his father. Good, remember son, I do love you and so does your mother, that said. He looked at everyone in the room once more and then Kakashi. Take care of him, Kakashi. Kakashi could only nod. Well, goodbye everybody. With that said, Minato slowly faded out of existence. The council chamber was silent now that they had seen the fourth yet again. Does anybody still disagree that Naruto is not a Namikaze? Nobody said anything. Sarutobi smiled. Then, the Namikaze estate should be back and it now belongs to you, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Said blonde only nodded as he gripped the scroll in his hand. If only it was really him, he thought to himself. Heishi was the first to truly recover, Namikaze-san. Naruto looked at the Hyuga head and smiled warmly. Just call me Naruto. Heishi nodded. Like father like son, I see. If you would like, I can escort you to your new estate now that you live quite close to my own estate. Naruto nodded. Yeah sure, I just have to stop by my apartment to grab a few things. XXXXXX Sakura was walking along the road towards her house. She had lost track of Sasuke a few hours ago and had finally quit searching. She walked through her front door to find her mother on the couch, silently staring at a picture of one of her closest friends. Sakura saw the picture and sighed. Apparently, Sakura's mother had a slight crush on Minato Namikaze back in the day when she was an academy student. Mom, I saw him today, her mother said. What? Minato? We all saw him one last time at the council meeting. Sakura stared at her mother. She had finally gone of the deep end. It couldn't have been. He's been dead for 13 years. I know that Sakura, but I actually saw him one last time, and the way he looked at me, she struggled to hold back tears. It's because of the way I treated his only son. Mom, the Yondaime never had a son. No Sakura, he did. The same day that he died. There aren't any boys with the name Namikaze. That was to protect the boy from his father's enemies. Sakura suddenly recalled something Naruto had said earlier that day. Because of my lineage, I didn't want anyone to recognize me for who I truly was until I could at least defend myself. What was the boy's name? She asked, although she already knew the answer. Naruto. Sakura sat down. I can't believe it. Naruto is the son of the fourth Hokage. Naruto was brought before the council for he had discovered his lineage. We didn't believe him at first until he opened a scroll that the Yondaime had left behind. When Naruto activated the blood seal, it summoned a clone of Minato to explain that he was a Namikaze. So, how did you treat Naruto to have the Yondaime look at you in a way that would upset you? Sakura's mother looked ashamed when she recalled what a terrible childhood Naruto had had. He has suffered at the hands of the villagers, not just mentally, but physically. When he was younger, he would be beaten repeatedly by mobs. A few times, I saw them beating the boy and did nothing to help, and once, I had helped with the beating. Sakura looked at her mother in horror. Why? She asked. Something that was completely out of his own control. He sacrificed so much for the village and all we did to repay him was to beat and shun him. Who else helped? She asked her mother sadly. She was remembering how she had treated her classmate in the academy and how he had finally snapped at her today. I'm a horrible person. There were too many people involved to actually know. There were a few such as the Yamanakas, the Hokage and your sensei that showed no hostility towards the boy. Sakura sat in silence beside her mother who was silently crying. XXXXXX Naruto was surprised that Heishi had no idea about the shithole apartment that he had lived in for most of his life. When Heishi was led towards the apartment, he was getting angrier and angrier at the state of the neighborhood. Naruto, how long have you lived here? He asked the young blonde. Naruto shrugged. Since the orphanage threw me out. Which was when exactly? I think I was 6. Heishi struggled to keep his anger in check. He slowly began breathing exercises to control himself. Hyugas were not supposed to be emotional. It's okay, Heishi. After the assassination attempt stopped, it was okay. Heishi looked at Naruto for a moment before smiling, like his father, always looking optimistically. Naruto finally arrived at his apartment and ran in quickly, not wanting to stay much longer than necessary. He quickly found the shopping bags with his new clothes and grabbed them. He ran out of the building. So, let's get going now, Heishi-san. The Hyuga head nodded. Yes, I am most interested to see the gates yet again. Naruto smirked. So what exactly do you see when you see the gates? Heishi looked at Naruto in surprise for a moment when Naruto answered his question. Ji-san told me about the genjutsu. Heishi nodded. I see, well, Heishi blushed at this. I don't want to say. Naruto grinned. It's not perverted, is it, Heishi-san? Heishi looked at Naruto for a moment. You know that it will only display places, not things. Naruto shrugged. So, I would bet that if Jiraiya of the Sannin looked, he would see a brothel. Heishi chuckled. He does have a one-track mind, so I've heard. The two shinobi continued out of the poor part of the village and continued silently through the market district and other residential parts. Naruto noticed that they were passing the Yamanaka flower shop and that it was in fact still open. Inside, he could see a worn-out Ino sitting at the register. Naruto stared as he passed the large glass windows, looking at the beautiful Yamanaka as the light from the setting sun hit her perfectly. Just as beautiful as in the future, Ino seemed to have noticed him staring and looked up to lock eyes with him for a moment. Ino was very surprised when she looked up to see the boy that she had tried to talk to looking at her as he passed. The next thing she noticed was that he was holding a few bags that were full of clothes. Ino knew this since she had plenty of experience shopping for clothes and knew what the bags looked like. This intrigued her, seeing as how there were quite a few bags, all of them packed to the gills. A man that can shop, she mentally shouted in joy. Then, she noticed who he was walking with. Heishi Hyuga was rarely ever seen with anyone that wouldn't be considered important. Yet, here he was with someone she had never seen before today. She continued to stare until they had passed the shop and were out of her sight. Wow, Heishi was suppressing a grin. He had seen Naruto and the other blonde staring at each other with great interest. So, Naruto, are you interested in any kunoichi in this part of town? He asked politely. The young Namikaze, however, could detect a hint of amusement in Hiyoshi's voice. Careful, my friend, we are neighbors now and I have been known to pull pranks and not get caught by Anbu. Heishi nodded, still suppressing a smirk. That answers my questions. Naruto sighed. He wasn't this forward or teasing when we met in my time. They continued walking in silence, which was fine with the two of them, seeing as how it was a comfortable silence. Just as they were approaching the Namikaze estate, Heishi broke the silence. So how strong are you really, Naruto? Naruto shrugged. I'm going to tell you what I told Sasuke Uchiha. I haven't been pushed to my limit because the situation has never called for it. But, if I were to gauge my own strength, at least as strong as a rookie Jonin. Heishi wasn't very surprised, considering who his father was. Dead last in the academy, Number 1 is a genin. Heishi remembered how different his blonde-haired friend's power seemed to be when they had fought in the Chunin exams for the first time. Your father was the same, hiding your true potential until you were out of the academy. Naruto smirked. Yeah, but he never hid his true self from anybody, including the Hyugas. Heishi frowned at this. I'm not trying to be offensive, it's just that I actually did get away with it, but if you had activated your bloodline on me, you would have seen me for who I truly was. Heishi nodded. Nice save. It was the truth. Heishi grunted. They had finally reached the gate and Naruto looked at what was beyond it. Naruto grinned. He always grinned whenever he was here. What is it that you see? Heishi asked. Depends on my mood. Heishi nodded. I would invite you in, but I want to look around first before I have anyone come over. I understand, however, I will expect an invitation from you as soon as possible. Naruto grinned. I understand why as well. I'm not going to care if you give me some sort of housewarming gift or not. I'll back you up on anything if I approve of it. I know of the council workings and that you are very influential, however, so am I now that I have my father's name. Heishi nodded. He had been expecting the blonde to know the workings of the council since he had discovered who the blonde was. I shall take my leave then, Naruto nodded, not seeing any reason to say anything. As Heishi left, Naruto lifted his arm to push against the iron gates so that he could finally get home. He felt the sensation that the barrier gave whenever he touched it. He pushed through it, feeling a tingling sensation in his arm and reached the cold bars, pushing them open. The gates slowly and silently opened themselves after the slight and gentle touch of Naruto's hand. Naruto walked past them and heard them close behind them. Naruto looked around, seeing the large field of grass around him. To his right was a small forest. In it, he could sense a variety of different creatures. He smiled as he saw a small fox emerge from a bush and look at him curiously. Naruto stared back, unblinking. He knew that this fox would not harm him. The fox, however, was unsure of the new arrival. Finally, the fox yawned and turned away, trotting into the forest. Naruto chuckled. He slightly wondered if the Kyuubi had ever acted like that when it was younger, however, he doubted it. Naruto looked to his left to see the large field. In the middle of the field was a training spot slightly resembling Training Ground 7, without the river. Naruto looked forward and followed the dirt road towards a house not far in the distance. Naruto stared longingly at the building. It was a large 3-story house that seemed to radiate an aura of warmth. Naruto smiled at all the things he would enjoy in the house. He remembered that there was an onsen in the back and was looking forward to feeling its effects. First things first, he thought as he entered the house, intent on reaching the library to find a certain scroll. Sakura yawned as she entered Training Grounds 7 at 7:30. She noticed that she was the first one there as she sat against one of the 3 wooden posts. She let her mind wander as she stared at her surroundings. She had to admit, it was quite beautiful for a place to train. I wonder if Ino Pig is doing the same thing. She sighed as she recalled her early childhood and her friendship with the Yamanaka. Then, she remembered how Ino had been looking at her blonde teammate the day before. The look on her face will be priceless when I tell her that she was ogling Naruto. Her memories of what had transpired the night before resurfaced. Naruto never would have thought he'd been through all that the way he acts. She continued recalling how guilty her mother had seemed and how much she had cried. Then, Sasuke appeared. He was slowly making his way over to the pink-haired Kunoichi. Sakura blushed when Sasuke stopped in front of her and stared at her for a moment. Did you have breakfast? He asked. Sakura's brain seemed to have come to a sudden halt. Then, one thought ran through her head. Sasuke-kun talked to me. Sasuke stared at the girl for a few seconds before repeating the question, which snapped the fangirl to reality. Oh, no, she said meekly as she recalled that the Uchiha had apparently agreed with Naruto's suggestion. Was the reply she received as the Uchiha walked over to a tree and leaned against it. Sakura stared longingly at the brooding boy, thinking about all the possibilities that came with him talking to her. Sasuke was frowning at the Kunoichi that was staring at him intently. Naruto pointed it out to us and yet she ignored it. I thought that she was supposed to be the smartest girl in our graduating class. Maybe Naruto isn't the dobi, she is. Sasuke then remembered what he had seen Naruto do the night before. How? How did he get through that barrier and yet I couldn't? Is he stronger than me? Sasuke reminded himself of the look in Naruto's eyes, one that told of power and knowledge. For that reason, Sasuke was slowly beginning to acknowledge the blonde, unconsciously at least. Sasuke listened to the leaves of the trees around them rustle from the soft breeze that was blowing that day. Seems peaceful, thought Sasuke. It had seemed like a few hours had passed and there was still no sign of Kakashi or Naruto. Sakura had attempted to move closer to the Uchiha, but he was sitting in a tree now as Sakura sat against the trunk of a tree a few yards from Sasuke. Why do you think Naruto's late? Same with Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked. Sasuke didn't look in the kunoichi's direction as he grunted. Sakura sighed. Why won't he give me a straight answer? Because you're weak, came her answer. She looked up in surprise to see a fatigued Naruto. What? Naruto looked in Sasuke's direction and then back to her. He wants someone strong to help him, he doesn't like to be held back. I thought you already knew this about your precious Sasuke-kun. Sasuke had jumped out of the tree and walked up to Naruto. You're pretty observant, Dobi. Naruto shrugged, not caring about the kunoichi that had flames dancing in her eyes. I don't really care, but it's kinda obvious. Sakura had her fist clenched and was thinking about punching at Naruto's head when a pop was heard and Kakashi appeared, holding Naruto's shoulder with his eye smile. Sakura, I would hold back if I were you, he said as he glanced at his young charge. Sakura, who had her fist raised, looked at Naruto and then Kakashi questioningly. Naruto had obviously been training recently and might accidentally hurt you as he is still in what many would call battle mode, explained the Cyclops. Naruto just chuckled. Were you spying on me? Kakashi shook his head. You look fatigued, and I have a great sense of smell and it has been obvious that you have been training with someone who trains for youthfulness. Naruto shuddered at this word. Please refrain from ever saying that word around me. Kakashi had actually had to suppress a shudder when he had realized what he had said. I hope I don't wake up with the same hair and wardrobe, thought the copynin, imagining what he would look like with those two factors. Mentally shaking himself, he took his hand off of Naruto and produced 2 bells. Well, now that we're all here, let's get started, shall we? The 3 genin were now at attention. 2 of them seemed to have ignored my warning about breakfast, thought Kakashi as he noticed their posture. He then remembered what Naruto had suggested when Kakashi had left. He wondered if this team would pass. I hope so. All the 3 of you have to do is get one of these bells, and you'll get lunch. Sakura had realized that what Naruto had suggested was good advice. But, there are only 2 bells and 3 of us, she exclaimed. Kakashi, I smiled. Again. Very perceptive, yes, there are only 2 bells and whoever doesn't get a bell will be tied to that post over there and have their lunch eaten by me. Also, the loser shall be sent back to the academy. Sasuke and Sakura's eyes widened when they heard this. Naruto however looked bored. If you intend on getting a bell, you will have to come at me with the intent to kill. The 3 genin nodded, one of them quickly remembering the plan that he had come up with. On your mark, get set, go. 2 people quickly took off into the forest surrounding them while 2 stayed in the clearing, facing each other. The other 2 were hidden quite well. Naruto just stood there, glancing at the spots that his teammates were hiding. He knows where the other 2 are already. Interesting. At this, Kakashi reached into his pouch to grab his favorite novel to find that it was missing. I know that I brought it with me, did it fall out? Naruto smirked when he saw his sensei looking for the missing orange book that was now behind his back. Naruto had gotten the idea from Madar guy that morning while training. Flashback: Naruto had come back to the field of eyebrows to participate in training with the 2 taijutsu specialists. It was currently 7 and Naruto was supposed to take his bell test in a few hours. He knew that Kakashi would be late, he always was. When he was halfway through sparring with the older of the 2 specialists, he had mentioned his test and Guy had sprung into action. Yash, my eternal rival may be cool and hip, that book of his however, restricts his flames of youth from blazing as much as mine. I am sure that if that book were used as a bargaining chip that he would surely cave. I however, do not have such a weakness such as that. Flashback ends. Naruto wondered if Guy had purposely mentioned this so that Naruto would try this method out. Only one way to find out. Hey Kakashi-sensei. Looking for this? Naruto held the book out and grinned at the look of shock that Kakashi had. How did you do that? He asked. He couldn't remember when the young shinobi had pulled a fast one on him. When you appeared and had your hand on my shoulder, it gave me the perfect opportunity to take it, so I did. Now give me a bell or I'll burn it. I've underestimated him and now my precious book is in danger. Kakashi lunged at Naruto at a quick speed and grabbed his book from Naruto, who hadn't reacted quickly enough. Smart Naruto. I didn't realize that you knew of that weak point. However, you've threatened one of my most precious objects and for that, I will make sure that you lose. Kakashi was only throwing empty threats, but Naruto didn't need to know. Sasuke smirked. Not bad, Naruto. I guess you did your research on this guy. He watched as the two shinobi in the clearing stared each other down when Kakashi broke the silence. I guess I'll teach you a lesson during this little exercise. Lesson 1, Taijutsu. Naruto charged Kakashi when he had finished talking. Damn it, Naruto, he's a jonin, thought Sasuke. As Naruto charged, he thought one thing. I need to tone it down for this. I don't need Kakashi getting serious. Naruto aimed a kick for Kakashi's head, who quickly ducked underneath the leg. Naruto recovered as he pulled out a kunai and launched it at his sensei. Kakashi was thinking about how easy catching the kunai was going to be when Naruto flipped through some familiar seals. He knows this. Kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The one kunai became 50 and Kakashi was forced to use a kawarimi. When the log had hit the ground, Naruto was on the defensive. Kakashi was using a taijutsu style that seemed to be similar to the Jayuken and the Goken styles. Kakashi threw a punch through Naruto's guard, forcing the blonde to drop to the ground to be met with Kakashi's sandal. Naruto felt the foot connect with his face and was thrown into the air. He quickly controlled his flailing body and landed smoothly, only to shoot forward even faster. Here I thought that I wouldn't have to use Goken. Naruto was back on the offensive, thrown punch after punch at the copy nin only to have them all blocked or parried. Kakashi had grabbed hold of Naruto's arm and pivoted to the right, using the momentum to throw the blonde at the river. Naruto crashed through the clear surface of the river, and as he was sinking towards the murky bottom, he made a familiar cross sign. Sasuke was having a hard time keeping up with the two as they fought and was slightly disappointed when Naruto landed in the river. Still, how does he move so quickly? His thoughts were interrupted when someone covered Sasuke's mouth. Don't move, came Naruto's voice. Sakura had had a similar reaction to Sasuke's when watching the fight. I thought he was the dead last and here he is showing me and Sasuke-kun up. She then felt a presence behind her and drew a kunai from her pouch to find that there weren't any there. Looking for these? Sakura whirled around to see a frowning Naruto holding her 5 kunai that she had on her. How did? She was interrupted when Sasuke appeared. Sasuke-kun, she yelled. Naruto threw her a look that clearly said shut the hell up. Sakura looked down at the ground, blushing from her loud voice. Kakashi had probably heard her. It's fine for now, seeing as how Kakashi is occupied, said Naruto. Occupied? She asked. Sasuke pointed to the clearing and she followed his line of sight. There in the field were 5 Narutos fighting one Kakashi. How are you here and there? She asked. Kage Bunshin, now listen up Sakura, I have a plan to get those bells. Kakashi wasn't surprised to find that Naruto knew the Kage Bunshin technique. He was surprised that they were all dodging his blows. Their teamwork seemed flawless as they were all the same person, but it did give Kakashi a peek at what could be accomplished if Naruto had gotten wind of the true purpose to the exercise. Only half an hour left and no teamwork at all. Kakashi saw an opening and took it, as he drew a kunai and threw it into the middle of the clones. On the kunai was an explosive tag. Payback Naruto. The tag exploded and destroyed 4 of the Narutos, leaving one battered Naruto staring at an empty clearing. You know, a voice said behind him. You should never expose your back to an enemy ninja. There, behind Naruto, was Kakashi holding the oh so familiar sign of the tiger. 1,000 years of death, yelled Kakashi as he performed the jutsu that Naruto had been trying to avoid ever since the first time. Naruto, however, smirked and said one thing. Boom! The Naruto exploded and Kakashi, who had not been expecting this, had barely braced himself with enough chakra to escape relatively unscathed. Kakashi was flung through the air with his clothes slightly singed. Minato-sensei, your son is fantastic. As he landed, he noticed something wrong. He was surrounded by 3 genin who all had their kunai drawn. Well, what do we have here? Thought Kakashi. You guys ready? Naruto asked. He received 2 nods of acknowledgement. All right, go. Sakura flipped through signs as she threw her kunai and watched as it tripled as it sailed through the air. At the same time, Sasuke had flipped through his own hand seals and inhaled, focusing his chakra in his lungs. Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu. The large fireball flew towards its target. Naruto watched as Kakashi preformed a Kawarimi and reappeared just behind Naruto. Suddenly, Kakashi was on the defensive as Sasuke had jumped out of hiding and the Sasuke that had just used a jutsu disappeared in puff of smoke. Sakura flung 6 shuriken at the 2 and Sasuke smirked as he held his ground as a shuriken pierced his back. Kakashi narrowed his eyes as he formed a ram seal and suppressed his chakra, quickly breaking the genjutsu he was under courtesy of a certain cherry blossom. The first thing he noticed when the genjutsu was gone was that there were 4 cage bunchins holding on to him. You move, you die, one of them said. The next thing he noticed were the 2 teammates holding bells, one blushing, one brooding. Where's the real Naruto? He asked. His question was answered by one sentence. 1,000 years of death. Kakashi was now flying through the air, holding his rear end and thinking one thing. That kid is really talented, and really cruel. Thanks for watching guys.